were in large part made up of refugees from religious persecution, seeking by their immigration religious freedom that was unavailable to them in Europe. So we inhabit a hemisphere today whose entire history is inescapably linked to the question and history of religious liberty. As a result, it is important for us to remember that we are not doing the work of this conference in a vacuum. It was here, in the New World, that some of the early and most important debates over religious liberty were held. In a way, the heritage of our gathering dates back nearly 400 years to the work of Bartolomé de las Casas. He was the 16th century Dominican priest whose book, In Defense of the Indians, argued against forced conversions on the basis that by its very nature, faith must be a free act and cannot be forced by threats of violence. And the Catholic Church has been there every step of the way. It has been there as a voice of conscience, and at times a target of those who would deny freedom of conscience. In the years since Bishop Zumárraga faced Nuño de Guzmán and de las Casas championed the cause of the Indians in New Spain, and in the years since John Carroll fought anti-Catholic bigotry in the United States, and in countless other settings over hundreds of years, the Catholic Church has often been the courageous voice speaking out for the religious liberty and civil rights of those throughout the Western Hemisphere. And unsurprisingly, as the largest religious group in this hemisphere, the Catholic Church has often been the focus of much of the debate over religious liberty. Think, for example, of the obstacles faced by Al Smith and John F. Kennedy in their candidacies for the presidency of the United States in 1928 and 1960. Governor Smith faced the fiery crosses of the Ku Klux Klan, and Senator Kennedy faced and overcame the less vocal but still strong endemic bigotry of many of his fellow citizens. Consider the restrictions and eventual persecution of the church in Mexico, whose underpinnings are summed up so well in an exchange between then-President Plutarco Elias Calles and Bishop Leopoldo Ruiz y Flores, then Bishop of Michoacán, in the 1920s. The dialogue went like this, according to President Calles' personal papers. Calles: without any hesitation, you will have to submit, Ruiz y Flores, against the dictates of our conscience. Calles: the law is above the dictates of conscience. This exchange makes very clear why the right of conscience must be protected along with religious liberty. Freedom to worship as you wish without the right to practice your faith in daily life is incomplete at best, and most likely at risk of being suppressed over time. As Pope Benedict stated so eloquently at the United Nations, and this is worth repeating, religious liberty cannot be limited to the free exercise of worship, but rather has to give due consideration to the public dimension of religion, and hence to the possibility of believers playing their part in the building of the social order. Indeed, the Church's contribution to the social order of our hemisphere has occurred in every corner of the hemisphere. Its stand for religious liberty has not been limited by location, country, type of government, or by political ideology of those in power. And if sometimes this message has been welcomed, at other times it has been preached at a great price.